Thank you. Good morning and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. I am Councillor Karima Gavanlu and I will be chairing the Planning Committee meeting today. On the top table are Sarah Everard, Ben Burgess, myself, Vice Chair, Eleanor Lamming and Lucy from Democratic Services. We are not expecting a fire drill today, but if the alarm does sound, the fire exits are clearly signed in green. This meeting is being live streamed. Members of the public are welcome to film proceedings as long as they are not disruptive to the conduct of the meeting. If anyone wishes to record this meeting, please identify yourself now. Nobody? Thank you. Please can you ensure that all your mobile phones and electronic devices are turned to silent. Councillors, please do not use your mobile phone whilst the committee is in session. We will have comfort breaks at various times if needed throughout the meeting. If you must use your mobile, then please leave the room. However, you will appreciate that this could result in you not being able to vote on the matter under discussion at the time you leave the room. The order of business is set out on the agenda. Members of the public can only speak if prior arrangements have been made in accordance with the Council's scheme of public speaking. The allocated time is a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker or parish council, with a maximum of 15 per category. Only people who have registered to speak will be able to address the committee. The order will be as follows. The planning officer will present the application. Public speakers will then be asked to present their case, followed by questions from members of the committee to clarify something the speaker has said and not to invite the speaker to put further points across. The order of public speaking is Town Council first, followed by objections and finally supporters, e.g. the applicant and agent. Council members who are not members of the committee will then be invited to speak for the allocated time of a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker. This will be followed by questions from members of the committee. Again, these questions will only be to clarify something the speaker has said and not to invite the speaker to put further points across. The committee will then discuss and determine the application. Finally, there is no provision for members of the public to circulate documents, photographs, etc. at the meeting. Are there any questions before I open the meeting? Thank you. Before we begin today's agenda, I would like to take a moment to reaffirm our shared commitment to the standards that underpin our planning committee's work. Firstly, I recognise that last week's meeting did not fully reflect the principles we strive to uphold. Our proceedings must always demonstrate professionalism, mutual respect and a clear understanding of planning policy. This is essential in maintaining public trust and supporting the integrity and lawfulness of our decision making. Secondly, I would like to remind members that any objections raised during discussions should be grounded in relevant planning policies, ensuring they are legal, robust and defensible. Whilst we may be mindful of our role as a councillor in the community, when sitting on this committee, we must maintain good standards of priority and then that maximises the risk of legal challenges. Finally, planning applications require a decision, so it isn't appropriate to abstain from voting. If a decision cannot be made based on planning grounds, it is appropriate to follow the officer's recommendation. A clear and decisive outcome helps encourage accountability, and each of us plays a vital role in ensuring the integrity of our decision making. Thank you. We will start with the agenda. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Warber, Councillor Baby, Councillor Tipple, Councillor Johnson with Councillor Brennan as substitute and Councillor Mia with Councillor Catchpole as substitute.
Okay, are there any declarations of interest from any members of the committee? Thank you. Right, we've got to applications. The first application is Helsden 2024-3511, Norwich Golf Club, Drayton High Road, and I will ask Sarah to present the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So as the Chair's just said, this is an application for a variation of condition of the application 2018-1963, and the application is seeking to vary the current master plan for the former Royal Norwich Golf Club site
It is also seeking to relook at the viability appraisal for the scheme and a consequential deed of variation to the Section 106 agreement. So just to provide a little bit of context for the site is an allocated site within the Greater Norwich Local Plan under policy STR 09. It was also an allocated site through the Site Allocations DPD, which preceded the GNLP. The site is allocated for up to 1,000 homes. That application has been subject to a planning consent, which was granted in 2016. That consent was for up to 1,000 houses to come forward on the site that you can see before you. That site is split into 6 phases. We have phases 1 to 3, which are located to the east of Drayton High Road, and phases 4 to 6, which are located to the west of Drayton High Road. So just to give you a little bit of context for the site, we've got the Drayton High Road, which runs through the centre here. Down here we've got Asda, David Lloyd and the Holiday Inn. This is the low road along here. And you've got Helston Hospital located in this area here, alongside Helston High School and other schools just located just to the north of the site. So in terms of the allocation policy, this is the allocated site as set out within the Greater Norwich Local Plan, which, as I've set out, allows up to 1,000 new homes to be accommodated on this site. There are requirements within that policy, which included improvements around access into the site from Drayton High Road, which has actually already occurred. It also required up to 2 hectares of land to be provided for new education provision. The site was also required to mitigate for the loss of the open space. So obviously as a golf course, it was required to mitigate through new golf provision, and that has already happened. So in terms of the application and where we're up to now, so this is the approved block plan from the 2015 application that was granted by this council in 2016. And this approval was for up to 1,000 homes. What you can see here is on these sort of orangey blocks, these are proposed to be the residential development. The green relates to the trees on the site. We've got 2 hectares of land here, which were for playing pitches, and 2 hectares of land over here for the school site. As this application and the Section 106 agreement is now over 5 years old, the Town and Country Planning Act allows for the applicants to submit a request to modify a Section 106 agreement, and because of the age of this document, the council must consider this. As part of this, a viability appraisal has been submitted. This reflects the changes in circumstances with the site from when it was originally approved. So as I set out, the original consent was for up to 1,000 houses. It's now not been possible to deliver 1,000 homes on this site. So there is a surface water flow path, which hopefully you can see my cursor, okay, which flows through the site through here. So we can see that there was planned to be some blocks of development in these areas. That's now not been possible to deliver those houses in those locations. So we're actually looking at a total number of houses closer to 780 being delivered on the site. In addition to this, the build costs are significantly higher than was originally expected with this site. And this reflects the fact that there is a requirement for significant piling within the site and retaining walls as well. So on this basis, the applicants have submitted a viability appraisal, and we have considered this. We have taken independent advice on this application. We've undertaken our own independent viability assessment from an independent specialist. We have also taken advice from an independent quantity surveyor to look at and analyse all of those build costs as well. The viability appraisal has been carried out in accordance with the National Planning Practice Guidance. This looks at the total gross development value of the site and then has regard to all of the development costs associated with it. As part of a development viability appraisal, there is an allowance for viability profit. This is set out within the National Planning Practice Guidance of a range between 15 and 20%. That range has been subject to numerous appeals across the country, and that is the national guidance that sets out that a developer can achieve a profit from a site, and that 15 to 20% is set out within that national guidance. So in terms of the viability assessment that we have undertaken, We have not fully accepted all of the recommendations that were set out within Persimmon's viability appraisal, but even within our own viability appraisal, that has shown that this scheme is not considered to be viable, and it does not achieve the level of developer return that is set out through national guidance. In terms of our own independent viability appraisal, it is set out that even if we remove all remaining affordable housing from phases 3 to 6, so phases 1 and 2 have been completed and they provided affordable housing, our viability appraisal sets out that if we remove all affordable housing from the remaining phases, so the remaining 4 phases, and also remove any further Section 106 contributions, the scheme is not considered to be viable on that basis. So in terms of this application and what we're looking at now before you, the proposal is in relation to affordable housing. Obviously, our own viability assessment says no further affordable housing from phases 3 to 6 onwards. The developer has offered additional affordable housing from phase 5 onwards to achieve 15% across the site. So there's currently been an achievement of 11% if you look at the site-wide numbers between phases 1 to 6. So that's been achieved through phases 1 and 2, and the developer has offered to increase that up to 15% for the whole site from phase 5 onwards. In terms of the education provision, and obviously we're looking at this education site here, the proposal is to remove that primary school site, and I'll go into that in a bit of detail in a second. And it's also proposed to reduce the level of playing pitches on the site down to 1 hectare. So what we're looking at now in terms of the block plan and the proposed changes, so obviously this greyed out area, this is phases 1 and 2. This has got consent. These dwellings are completed. I think the majority of them now are all occupied as well. So we're looking really at these remaining phases 3 to 6. So if we take the school site first, which if you remember was in this location here, we've consulted with the county council on this. So the county council are the local education authority, so we've taken their advice on this matter. They have considered this through a meeting of their cabinet in March this year. They have agreed that a primary school site is not required within this application, and this is taken into account the falling birth rate within the area and also the existing capacity within schools in the area. They have also taken into account the growth of this development and development elsewhere in the area to reach those conclusions. In respect to playing pitches, so there is that reduction in the size of the playing pitches down to 1 hectare. We have consulted with Sport England and also with the council's own leisure and development manager, who has also been in contact with Norfolk FA. The level of provision proposed does fall below our own policy requirement at policy RR1. Notwithstanding that, looking at the level of need from local clubs, there isn't a need for those, a particular need for full-size adult football pitches on the site. That reflects that actually the House and Football Club does play at the Nest, and that is meeting their needs and requirements. In terms of the level of playing pitch needs, Sport England use their own calculator to work out the number of playing pitches required and have set out that the level of land required and proposed would meet that requirement. But obviously that does fall below our own policy level. So going forward in terms of this scheme, obviously our viability appraisal set out that there wouldn't be a need for further Section 106 contributions. We are still looking at additional Section 106 contributions, which is above the level that the viability report proposes. So obviously that is the inclusion of that reduced level of playing pitches. There is a proposal for the community building here. There is also proposals to be retained around the travel bond, which is required, and also woodland management schemes as well. In addition to this development would still provide community infrastructure levy for all market housing. So just going forward, I appreciate we discussed this scheme very briefly, and members voted for a site visit to be undertaken at a previous committee in September. It is Office's recommendation or approach that we've suggested that could this be achieved through using videos of the site. So we've got some videos for you now to show you the site. There are topographical challenges with the site in terms of the land levels and things, so to see whether you've considered that the videos would be suitable. So I'll just take you through the videos of the scheme now. What I've got is I've tried to put just a star here so you can see where I am on the site as we go round, but I will try to describe it as well so you can see. So this first video, I'm standing in what is basically the surface water flow path, which is associated with phase 1, and we're going to see round through phase 2 as well. So standing here, this is where Alistair and David Lloyd is. The video just swing round, so phase 3 of the site starts behind these trees here. And so like I said, this is phase 1, this is phase 1, and then we've got phases 2 located over here, and the house is also associated with phase 1 over here. So just moving around, and again, if you want me to play any of the videos again or need to pause, just let me know. So this next video is taken just from the access sorry about that, apologies. Yeah, so this is just taken at phase 2, at the access point where the access joins into where phase 3 is proposed to be. So again, this is phase 3 is going in this location here. So this is just taking you further into the phase 3 site. We'll come onto phase 3 in a bit more detail in terms of item 2, and there will be more videos in respect to the site. But just to give you a bit of a context of the idea of the residential development surrounding the site here. So this is Pinewood Close that we can see just over here, which backs onto the site. Locating around now, so we've got Sutherland Avenue over here, so we can see these trees which are proposed to be retained. And what you can start to see is I'm on a lower point within the surface water flow path. You can start to see some of those land level changes within the site. And again, just coming slightly further, still retained in phase 3 here, just into this location here. So we've got Hercules Avenue, Hercules Road, sorry, here. So we're just moving into this area here. So this is Hercules Road on this side that borders the site. Okay, as part of this scheme, there has been changes to Drayton High Road that was a requirement in terms of achieving the accesses into the site. So if you drive regularly along Drayton High Road, you're probably very aware of what the changes that have happened along there in terms of the road widening elements, but I thought it was just worth, I've just got a couple of videos just to show you the changes. So the road has been widened with additional lanes and different accesses into the site. So just to show you those. So this is obviously the development phases 1 and 2 that are being completed. And then this is the access into phases 4 to 6 over here. And again, this is still in a similar location, but just going to look around the other way so you can see the development that has already occurred on the site. So the next sort of videos are going to be taken from phases 4 to 6. So we're just going to move sort of around the site just to show you those different land levels. So this first video, this is taken from within phase, what would be phase 4. So we've got the old clubhouse to the site, which was located in this area here. So again, you can just see some of those land level changes going on within the site. It is, I think phase 3 probably in terms of the overall land levels are the most significant changes, but there are still some quite significant changes in land levels within this, on this side of the road as well. It feels a bit more gently sloping until you're walking in it. There is some quite significant changes. So we're just then coming to the south of the site here. So again, So this is one of the lower areas of the site here. So there is actually from here, it's quite a steep slope downwards down to this area here. So if you remember, this is the low road down here. So that is quite a steep slope downwards to get to where this video is going to be taken. And you can just see those changes in land levels in the video. So as we turn around, if I'll try and pause it, it's this area here. There is quite a significant drop off in land levels as you come down. There's a small path through these trees here, and there is quite a significant drop off in land levels, which sort of become a bit clearer. I'm standing a bit lower. Obviously, those changes in heights there. Again, so this video is taken from this location here. This is closer to where the playing pitches are going to be proposed to be. So you can just see in terms of, so again, there's quite some changes in land levels. In terms of the playing pitches, the Section 106 agreement does require the developer for these to be levelled playing pitches. So that would have to be undertaken as part of that Section 106 agreement, and they'd need to be drained and everything else. So I think this is the final video from inside the site. This is within phase 5, which would be phase 5, closer to Drayton High Road. I'm going to now turn you around in the other direction in a second on this video. Just so the chap who was on the site as well wasn't in the film. Just so you can see that video. And this is just going to be the final video to show you. So this is Hospital Lane, which leads you from Drayton High Road down to the Low Road. There are some obviously significant changes in levels there. Obviously as set out within the names of the roads. In terms of Hospital Lane, as part of this development of phases 4 to 6, there is a requirement for a roundabout to be placed within there, which would provide a secondary access to the site. So the main access is the one that we saw already, which comes in from here, but there is that secondary access, which is shown on a block plan, which comes in here. So just a quick video just to show you that. So this is the Drayton High Road up here, and we're just going to sort of turn around slowly. Again, you can just see obviously that change in levels down towards the Low Road. So in terms of this application, the principle of development has been established through the allocation within the Greater Norwich Local Plan and through your previous allocation through the Site Allocations DPD. Both of those applications granted consent for allowed up to 1,000 houses to be permitted on the site. The principle of the development is also established through the extant planning application 2015-1770, which granted up to 1,000 homes on the site. The viability appraisal that the applicants have submitted has been independently reviewed by specialists. These note that the abnormal costs and reduced density justify the changes proposed in the scheme. The independent appraisal, which the council has undertaken, has confirmed that the proposal is not considered to meet the viability requirements that are set out within the National Planning Practice Guidance. This therefore sets out that a reduction in the contributions is considered to be acceptable. Notwithstanding this, it is noted that the developer is offering contributions above the level that our own independent specialist has set out the site can achieve. This includes retaining Section 106 contributions to the site, with the exceptions of those ones I've mentioned, and the additional affordable housing units on the site, which will take the total affordable housing units achieved across the site up to 15%. Taking this all into account, on balance, those changes are considered to be acceptable. By allowing the amendment to the master plan and the deed of variation to the Section 106, this will help to deliver the remaining units on the site. There are approximately 527 units remaining to be delivered across phases 3 to 6. This does need to be considered in the context of a lack of a housing land supply within the council, and that this proposal will support housing land supply, and this should be given significant weight. This, taken together with the fact it is an extant allocation and the viability appraisal, which has been carried out in accordance with the requirements of the National Planning Practice Guidance, means that we are recommending to you approval for this scheme with the amendments to the viability appraisal as set out. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any members of the committee have any questions for the officer? Jo first, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sorry, I wasn't here last week, so I don't know what happened. So I was slightly surprised not to get the site visit this morning. I don't know why that was cancelled. Really, looking at the video, it looks like it's nice grassy areas to walk on.
I just say, Joe,
like
it is very up and down topographically, and you will have to have your own.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Can we have silence, please, in the committee? Thank you.
Sorry, Caroline.
The ground does look very flat there. It is very up and down all the time. There is safety issues going there, and you will need your own safety equipment, I'm afraid.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Can I just go on to ask Sarah? You talked about the removal of the playing field, and it looks like the playing pitches have been reduced significantly. It was about 4 hectares of primary school and playing pitches, and this doesn't accord with our policy RL1, you said. Could you just explain what it says within policy RL1, if that's okay? And then I would also like just to go back to the satellite plan that you've got, and just to indicate where the biggest density of the 200 trees are being removed. That would be really interesting. Thank you.
So RL1 is a policy in relation to open space. This sets out the council's requirement, which I believe is 2.4 hectares per 1,000 population. So there is a reduction in terms of the level of open space being proposed. So what I would set out is that 2.4 hectares per 1,000 population relates to different forms of open space. It's not so we've got playing pitches, we also have children's play space forms part of that as well. So in terms of this scheme, children's play space is still being proposed to be provided. So we've got children's play space in terms of equipped play space being proposed on phase 3. We've also got a neighbourhood equipped area for play being proposed within phases 4 to 6 on this side of the road. That's in addition to the playing pitches that are proposed. So the playing pitches are, if I just find just jump back, the playing pitches are in this area here, so that's a reduction from 2 hectares down to 1 hectare there. And as I sort of set out, we have discussed that with both Sport England and with our own leisure and development manager within the council to consider that approach. In terms of the second part of your question, in terms of the trees, there is, so I think this application, we are looking at the deed of variation to the outline master plan. So phase 3, when we come on to it, there is a significant level of tree loss proposed within phase 3. So phase 3 is located over here. Now, what I would set out is we need to consider this outline, the master plan in the first instance. This council has granted consent on this site for up to 1,000 houses. When that consent was granted back in 2016, there was consideration around trees within that officer report. And in terms of, we'd considered whether or not things like playing pitches should be located on this site or whether they should be located off-site and a contribution be achieved. And that reflected officer concern at the time around the level of tree loss that would be proposed, and that to have the playing pitches and elements on site would result in greater tree loss. And it was a decision of the members at the time that they would still like to see those playing pitches on site. And got Ben here who dealt with that previous application, so he can pick up if there's anything he wants to add to it. But I think, so their level of tree loss has been accepted to happen on this site already through that 2016 application. So there is, I think when we look at the block plans, obviously there were trees in these locations through here, that the granting of that consent back in 2016 would allow for the level of tree loss here. Obviously we will come on to phase 3, which is item 2, and I would rather go through that in terms of the trees proposed to be removed in that bit of greater detail as it relates to the layout and design of phase 3 itself. But there, like I said, there is a level of tree loss that has been allowed through that consent in 2016.
Stuart first, then Eleanor, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm concerned, I mean, obviously, as Sarah's just alluded to, the trees will come into, effectively into the second part of this application, totally accept that. But I genuinely feel that the video really doesn't do the justice of what the decision we're making here on site. I think we would still benefit, in my honest opinion, from a site visit. I think there would be a lot gained from a site visit. It was, Ben did commit to a site visit, not at the last planning committee meeting, but the previous one. And I think it would be hugely beneficial to be able to walk the site and look at it in the round. Yes, I mean, we will need PPE, and yes, we'll have to risk assess accordingly. But I still think there would be a benefit in the site visit to make a, how can I say, a well-informed decision based around the whole aspects of this variation. Thank you, Chair.
I'm just going to come in if that's okay. Chair, just obviously my name was raised, so rightly that I respond. Yes, I agree. It was in the minutes as suggested and went with members' request that we go on a site visit. I'll take this. I've reflected and I do have real concerns about the health and safety for members walking around the site. That's not for anything that the developer are doing, I should make really clear. I feel, having known the site for many years, and also Sarah knows it as well, that we considered having the enhanced presentation today with the videos gives you a real flavour and feeling of the site. If we I suppose my push back, if it's being pushed to me, is what members would want to be achieving from that site visit that hasn't been done from the enhanced presentation today. That would be my question back.
Stuart, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I feel that basically we don't get a full aspect of the topography of the site, and we don't get a full view of the holistic approach to what we need to look at the site to make that decision, because it's fair as the video does its best, but the video is quite disjointed for no reason other than it's a video. So I would propose that we definitely do the site visit. The necessary risk assessment is taken, the necessary PPE is provided, but we do the risk assessment to be able to get, as I said, the full aspect of the topography of the site and the full feeling for the what I would call a holistic approach to what are quite radical changes from the approved plans. Thank you, Chairman. I'll put that as a proposal.
I'm going to ask Ben to come back on that, please.
Yeah, just to give only a little bit more context, but obviously it's for members to determine. Two things. One you might say is relatively minor, but I think it's important to bring up. There will be a cost for PPE. That cost will be, and again, I'm going to just continue on and ignore what's happening in the gallery, but there will be a cost, there will be a time cost, and there will be a significant amount of walking around the site required. It's a very large site. I'm speaking for Sarah here. She's been around a number of times. You're easily looking at a couple of hours to walk around it, and that's a challenge. Again, I don't think you will get a lot more from the site visit than you have done from the videos here today. I suppose I should say the whole point of the presentation and for members to have the videos today is just to give you that feel of the site, that flavour of it. And again, I know this isn't the question, but I'm going to continue on whilst I'm going. The point of the first application that we're considering today is to look at the viability of the scheme. The viability is really clear throughout the report and in the viability consultant's report as well. That application, without speaking out of turn, I think is relatively clear. Both applications are clear, but relatively straightforward. I suppose members are looking at a site visit for both of them, but I just wanted to put that in place as well. The site is large, and the final point I'll make before stopping is that if members do want to go on a site visit, then we would have to do it on the same day, as per the Broadland Members Handbook. The members who come on the site visit would have to then be part of the committee. If you don't come on the site visit, you can't be part of the committee. It will be all done on the same day, and that's probably what I'd say.
I've got Eleanor next and then Sue.
Thank you. I've got a couple of 2 or 3 questions. Is that okay? So that the first one is that in the previous report, there was a suggestion that it might be possible to have a clawback mechanism for more housing, for more affordable housing to be provided if the viability increased. So my question is, if we have the extra discount market sales housing provided, as the developer is now suggesting, would it still, so that would take it up to 15% affordable housing, would it still be possible then to have a clawback mechanism for more housing if the viability increased? Or are we, 15% is the absolute maximum level?
Speaking for Sarah, but she can pick up if she wants to. We've proposed a clawback mechanism in the section 106.
Thank you. In the list of conditions on page 10 of the agenda, there seem to be some repetitions. My question is, are they errors in the list of conditions, or are they repetitions for a reason? So we have, I'm slightly puzzled by condition 26 and 27 both say construction traffic management plan and access route. Item 27 has added use during construction. I'm slightly puzzled about the difference between those. And conditions 31, 33, 34 all say off-site highways works. That's my question. Is that correct?
That is correct. So in terms of a Section 73 application or a variation of condition, which this is, this grants a new consent for the site, but we need to include all of the previous conditions that were previously granted back in 2015 and as have been varied previously. So in terms of those conditions, condition 26 relates to parking for construction workers during the construction period, and that would be a condition that we would discharge across each of the individual 6 phases of the development. Condition 27 relates to construction traffic management plan and an access route as well. So I appreciate I've summarised them a little bit here, which maybe isn't the best summary, but they do refer to slightly different elements. And similarly, the off-site highways works refers to slightly different locations for off-site highway works to occur. And so what we would do as part of any Section 73 application that this is that we would update it to reflect any discharge of condition applications that have already been granted and any works that have been achieved. But as this is a 6-phase development, a lot of those conditions will need to be discharged to each of the 6 phases by the developer, and that's what they have been doing so far.
Thank you. And just one final question, if I may. A recent objection we've just had in on the update sheet suggests that the viability assessment is out of date. Is that correct or not?
So the viability assessment was undertaken in 2024. The viability appraisal did look at a range of sensitivity testing as well, which is required for viability appraisals. So they set out what would happen if market conditions improve. So if house prices improve, so they do that sensitivity testing. So if it improves by 2.5%, they look at what happens if build costs will decrease. So they look at if build costs went down, equivalent by 2.5% as well. So they did do that level of sensitivity testing within that viability appraisal. And even with those sensitivity testing that was undertaken, that still showed that the site was not considered to be viable. And that was for any further affordable housing or any further Section 106 contributions. On that basis, having regard to that sensitivity testing that was undertaken, we consider that that viability appraisal is still up to date.
I've got Ken first, Sue, then I'll come to you.
Thank you, Chair. Some of my concerns have already been raised, but I was concerned that we did unitedly agree that we would go on a site visit, and it was agreed by yourselves at the time. And I know this site, and I lived there sort of many years ago, lived near there many years ago, and I had a very helpful
talk with Sarah to help me understand the wording of the whole system really in two ways. And that was helpful. But I do certainly feel that I need to go and see that. I mean, it's lovely to see it all on the slides, but I feel that when I read carefully again the objections that were made, and not all of them will be relative to that, I agree, but a lot of them were. And, you know, I think it was mentioned that if a developer overpays for a site, that surely isn't a planning consideration, which it seemed to me did come into the picture. And I just feel that, you know, if we agreed to go on a site visit, and I take it we've got to be careful, and I hadn't sort of considered the costs that you were mentioning, but surely we wouldn't, there isn't an army of us, would there be more than 7 or 8 there? And I wouldn't have thought that was impossible. So having accepted the comments that were made and by Councillor Lennon when she queried as to whether the thing had been freely looked at from affordable point of view, and then also in one of the objections there, they were querying that the council had independent people coming in on some of the querying the costs that had been put forward by the developer as a reason. And then to come down to, even at the end of the day, I think it comes back down to 15% affordable housing. Now that's a big drop from what I thought our policy was. So in short, I still would like to have that site visit to try to get my head really around, because I still think there are some doubtful points in my mind about this application, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Sue?
It's
For the officer, is it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a very linked question in that having been playing golf on the site a few times over the years, I think is it not correct that the topography hasn't changed since 2016? And in that case, what has changed so that this developer cannot provide the 30% plus level of affordable housing? Can you summarise what is making this now unviable compared with what was agreed and given planning permission back in 2016? Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of the developable area, there has been changes. So if I just take you back, in terms of the consent that the council did grant, particularly in reflection to this area here, that's where the surface water flow path is now. So the actual level of development, that can't be developed within, so that's got to be retained. It'll be in a form of informal open space. I appreciate you might say that was already there in 2016, but obviously that is further evidence that has come to light in terms of the site. In terms of the costs themselves, obviously build costs has increased significantly since 2016, and we've seen this across a number of applications, is that those build costs have increased. We have looked at those build costs quite carefully. The build costs for the site are very high, and we haven't just accepted those build costs. So we did get that independent quantity surveyor, ACOM, in to look at those build costs very carefully. And they have agreed with the build cost proposed for the site, and they are significant. And that is to do with the level of piling being required within the site and the level of retaining walls proposed. I would just like to pick up a point that Councillor Leggett made about it shouldn't be for the council just to remove policy requirements because a developer has overpaid for the site. I know that wasn't quite your words, Ken, but that's the words I think I take from it. And I think that is true, and the National Planning Practice Guidance says that it is not through viability appraisals because a developer has overpaid they can just remove those planning policy requirements. Viability appraisals are looked at in terms of not what the developer has paid for the site. They look at creating a benchmark land value for the scheme, and that looks at an existing use value for the site, so what the existing use of that site would cost, plus a premium, and this is all set out within National Planning Practice Guidance. Now, we haven't fully accepted all of the findings within Persimmon's own viability appraisal. We didn't accept the findings in terms of the level of premium uplift that they were including. We've gone for and through our independent viability appraisal, we've looked at a lower level of premium being put onto that site, so that benchmark is that existing plus that premium, because the premium is needed for what would make somebody sell their land to make a development come forward. And this is all set out within national guidance. So we haven't accepted all of the findings of that viability appraisal. It's not looking at what Persimmon had paid for the site, it's looking at what that benchmark for the site would be, but still taking into that account. And there's a number of aspects where our own viability appraiser has differed from what Persimmon's viability appraiser has said. Even taking that into account, that is where it's still not showing that the scheme is considered to be viable. And there is that requirement within the Town and Country Planning Act under Section 106 of that Act that says where a viability appraisal or where a Section 106 agreement is more than 5 years old, an applicant can seek to vary or modify it, and the local planning authority needs to consider that based on the fact that circumstances may change. And it's under that reason that we have to consider this application.
Peter, is it for the officer question?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. Couple of points. Really, if it's over 5 years old, then how do we have to accept the recommendation that all these trees have got to be removed? Why has it taken so long for the developer to get to this stage? Notwithstanding COVID, obviously. I think they're cherry picking the reasons to amend it, but that's not really for the officer to decide. I think the talk about the cost of a site visit is just a smoke screen. I've visited other sites and it's never been an issue. So, I wonder why we have a committee if our request is to be overruled. Thank you.
Peter, consent was given in 2016 for the trees. This is not a new thing to consider.
Well, no, that's consent then. But that's given as a reason. Yeah. But to be, that's been accepted. So it's said, but there's other issues that were agreed in 2016 that are now going to be overruled.
I'm aware that there's conversation about a site visit clearly, and it's probably right that I defer to the chair in a minute to discuss that. But there's a couple of things I want to pick up. And I will reiterate the point that Sarah's made and raised well. The application is an allocated site. It was approved for up to 1,000 homes and then it's been continued as an allocation through. In terms of the build out you'll understand takes a period of time to do. Actually, Persimmon are building out a decent rate, and then the site's occupied and people are living in those homes. So we have an outline scheme that we go back to. As Sarah's very much more eloquently put than I have done, national policy allows for viability to be considered when things change during the lifetime of a planning application. Yeah. We get these viability reports that come into us so robustly checked by, I'm not saying this because we use them, but the best viability consultant that I've come across who pushes the case of the local authority to the nth degree. And you've read through the report and through the viability appraisal how far he's pushed it on this. We're at a point now where actually the developer is offered over and above what the viability consultant is even saying is reasonable to give. That's an unusual situation to be in, but it shows how committed they are to delivering the site. And again, without labelling this point, delivering homes on an allocated site that we as a council have allocated and we've approved before. So I just want to make that point really, really clear. Everything that's in place is fully legitimate for the developer to go through and for us then to consider as officers. Of course, and you would expect me to say this, of course we push and we push. Because of course we want as much affordable housing as we can on the site. Of course we want to deliver the playing fields. And of course we want to deliver the school. Things have changed during the course of it, but I'll come back to that point. We are in a place where we have to go through the appropriate viability considerations, and I'm really, really confident, not even confident's the wrong word, it's just really clear that we have a robust viability case in place, and what's in front of us is all that can be offered through this application. I'm going to then just move off that point and then just give a bit of context for a site visit. That's okay,
Yeah.
Chair. The members' handbook, and I think it's just worth raising. I'm sorry, I'm going to read some other bits out verbatim from here because it's just worth doing, so that members are aware. So this is in, if anyone wants to look afterwards, this is in section 14 of the Broadland members' handbook. I won't go into 14.1 because it's just a bit of preamble. 14.2 is that the purpose of a site visit is to make a tour of inspection by members accompanied by an officer who will ensure that the issues raised by the application are drawn to members' attention. 14.3, and this is probably the main point I wanted to touch on, is that invitations to visit will be extended to other parties as appropriate, and that can include the parish or town council, the local member, where not a member of the planning committee, the applicant, people who have made representations, and these invitations will be sent out by us. Participating members, including local members, must not engage in any discussions on the application during the site visit. And then following the site visit, and I'm going to paraphrase because it referenced the council's own previous building here, but following the site visit, planning committee will return to the Horizon Centre and to discuss and determine the application, and public speaking rights will apply. Going back again. So just wanted to make, the reason I say that is I just wanted to make members and those in the public here today aware that it wouldn't just be members of the committee, it would be a number of people traversing across that site, all of whom will need safety equipment, and by what I mean that it will be proper site boots, so you know, proper safety boots and high vis. There's no need for hard hats because the parts we're going on isn't a construction site as such, but so it's not just the members in terms of the site visit, it could be others as well. That's what that was all.
Okay, we're going to move on to speakers. We have no objectors registered to speak.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Anna.
Could I ask the officers a couple more questions? Is that okay, the officer? So one of the questions that came to me about viability was, I thought, well, could a higher density of housing have been provided on the site? So I wondered whether you could explain whether that's been looked at.
So that is a consideration, is whether an increased number of units could accommodate or could improve the viability. What I would set out is, in terms of calculating your developer viability, we look at what the gross development viability is for a scheme, and then you take away all of the costs associated with a scheme and to consider whether or not a site is viable. In terms of looking at your gross development viability, or gross development value, should I say, is the word I'm looking for. Obviously, the most expensive houses and the larger the house, generally the higher the value of the house. So a detached 4 or 5 bedroom house will have a higher value than, say, a 1 or 2 bedroom flat. So yes, you could increase the density, but obviously that could also reduce that gross development value. There are costs also associated with flats and elements like that. So there are some flats proposed within phases 4 to 6, but that does have a knock-on impact, and so that all needs to be taken into account when calculating that gross development value. And what I would say is, obviously, we have looked at what the development value and what the house prices are within the area. The independent viability appraiser has looked at what prices have been achieved across phases 1 and 2 already within the scheme and within the wider area as well. So we have looked at quite a lot of actual house price data and house price sales that have already occurred. But that would be my slight challenge back in terms of the gross development value, that if you go for a large number of units, which could result in more smaller units, actually their sales values is lower. So you could well be bringing down your gross development value as well.
Thank you. Sorry, I have another question. The overall site does require surface water flood mitigation. I noticed that phase 3 allows for some attenuation basins. So my question is, if for some reason phase 3 was not built out, would phases 1 and 2 still have adequate drainage?
Yes, so we would have looked at each of those phases as they come in. Obviously, it's a 6-phase development, so that's why we're getting those individual phases. So when phases 1 and 2 came in, the lead local flood authority will have looked at that carefully to make sure there was sufficient drainage for those phases, in the same way that they have looked at it for phase 3 to make sure that they are able to accommodate those flows.
And I just have, sorry, one more question. I don't know if I'm able to ask this, but if this application was to be approved, what profit might the developer reasonably expect to make approximately on this site when it's fully built out? So we are in, according to national planning policy guidance, we would expect the developers to reasonably expect a profit of 15 to 20%. So do we have a approximate figure for this site if it was fully built out?
We do and we don't, and I'm just going to cage my answer here slightly for a reason. So in terms of the viability report that we have had done by that independent specialist, that has shown that with no further affordable housing for phases 3 to 6 and no further section 106 contributions, a developer profit of 14.4% would be achieved on revenue. So that is below that national planning practice guidelines of 15 to 20. Now I'm going to cage my answer slightly because the developer is offering additional affordable housing on the site and additional section 106 contributions above what is in our report here. So that level of profit would therefore be reduced to accommodate that, but I don't have that reduced figure for you.
Stuart, was it last question?
Yeah, yes, just for a point of clarity, Chairman, if we're going to continue with the debate and the presentations, I think we just need a point of clarity, notwithstanding what Ben has said. Are we going to run a site visit or aren't we?
I think, sorry, I'm perhaps speaking for the Chair, but I think that's a fair comment. I think at the moment we have a proposer from Stuart in terms of, sorry, Councillor Canty, in terms of a site visit. I think it would be right for members to consider that in the round.
What do you want me to do?
Well,
Right. I was just going to ask for a seconder, Ken, so thank you. All right, can we go for a vote? All those in favour of a site?
Could I make a comment, or are we allowed to discuss anything before we go to the vote?
I think we've had enough discussion, haven't we?
I think. Sorry, I'm just going to slightly interject. It's if I go back to the bit that is also in the handbook, it is the suggestion that if members do want to defer for a site visit, they should do it at the earliest possible opportunity. So I think, given that if we were to go on a site visit, we would come back to the committee and hear public speaking, and we'd hear all that through next time. I don't want to necessarily take everyone's time if that ends up being the outcome. Of course, if the outcome is that you don't want to go on a site visit, we go back into the normal process as well. I am going to add something slightly more to that. I'm going to make the assumption or ask if members do want to vote on a site visit that you're making it clear that's for both of the applications on the agenda today. So I think, yeah, I'd go to the vote now. So in terms of the members who would be available and on the committee next time, it would just depend who's available. That's all. So it might be that people on the committee today won't necessarily be the members for next time, and that's one of the benefits or the sensible things to do of not discussing lots more now, because they won't be able to have that debate or conversation.
We are the planning authority after all, so will the council buy a small amount of safety boots and high-vis vest, because this is something that might happen time and time again, that we will need appropriate PPE, Chair?
I think that's a conversation for afterwards.
Before you vote, can you just make it, I'm just making it clear, we will have expenses for this. This is not just for the planning committee to go, it's for anybody else who wants to come along. Everybody needs safety equipment. It is a 40-hectare site to walk around, up and down, and we have no transport to go around that site. So please consider that when you vote. Okay, so we've got Stuart Clancy's proposal, Ken seconded. All those in favour of a site visit, please raise your hand.
That's 6 in favour, Chair.
And those against?
That's 2, Chair.
Okay, there's no appeal, so we're going to close the meeting today at 10:30. Thank you.